Well, thank you so much, Nadia and Eric. It's my pleasure to be here. This is a topic that I love talking about, so it was a perfect invitation as far as I was concerned. I lead PR and corporate comms for Paymob, and I established that function for the company 2 years ago when I joined. And the function actually arose out of a pain point that the company had during the Series B funding. It was really quite painful for the founders and the C-suite to craft a press release that they felt did the fundraise justice. They were working with a PR agency, but it ended up being just the entire C-suite on a call, editing, crossing off words, adding words, and after that very painful experience, they decided we really need to bring this function in-house, and so I joined the company. And my background is... Sorry, I thought my camera was on. Apologies, everyone. Um, oh. My background is in it's varied, actually, a variety of different communications fields, from broadcast journalism and production to PR agency side and corporate communications in-house. But PR is something that I really love to do because of the whole strategic angle of figuring out how to piece the different parts of the puzzle together to have the desired effect. So I think I'll get started. To be honest, when I put together the presentation, I assumed that the audience would have rudimentary knowledge of the topic. So I started out by laying the foundation, and just really, I thought I would just define what is strategic communications. Strategic communications is a method of delivering calculated, purposeful content very intentionally. So it involves communicating the most effective message through the most appropriate channel to the right audience at the right time, hence the intentionality. And really, it encompasses an integrated, multidisciplinary field, including PR, advertising, marketing, internal comms, external comms, all working in tandem very strategically to advance the company goals. Zooming in a little bit closer to talk about PR specifically, PR, or public relations, is the practice of managing and disseminating information from an individual or an organization to the public in order to influence the perception. So the objectives of PR are threefold: building trust, enhancing reputation, and basically shaping public perception. And this is my favorite quote from Bill Gates, who said, "If I was down to my last dollar of marketing budget, I would spend it on PR." And I agree with him. So when we talk PR and just kind of laying the groundwork, we really have to kind of talk pre-internet and post-internet. So in traditional PR, the formula was basically the media in different forms, whether it was newspaper, magazines, radio, trade publications, were the vehicles of dissemination of messages: a company message, a corporate message, a brand message. And PR agencies sat in the middle of that relationship as a vehicle to reach journalists and to disseminate the messages. So the characteristics of traditional PR were that it was very much one-way communication. Messages were sent out from the organization to the public. Messaging was very controlled because of that one-way flow, and the focus was really on reputation management more than anything else. Today, in the digital era, and with PR in the age of the internet and social media, it's taken on a very different, and I think the internet has had a democratizing effect, because you're no longer so dependent on the media and on journalists, on PR agencies. Brands are able to reach consumers or stakeholders very directly on own channels, whether it's through the website, social media, and other platforms. So now the communication is two-way communication. And digital PR allows for that real-time engagement and real-time feedback. Now we have owned media sitting in between earned and paid. So earned, as in before, media mentions and write-ups and features, and the paid media as in advertising. But now we have that segment called owned media, which is, whether it's our website, our blog, the mentions, the reposts, all of that interaction that happens online. And it's really valuable for a brand. Additionally, in the PR in the digital era is very much driven by data and insights, and we all have access to so many analytics that help us gauge how our campaigns are doing as they're going, which has been a game changer for the industry. And this era has also brought on really a demand for transparency and authenticity, because where it's lacking, it's very easy to be called out, and you really don't want to be in that situation in a very public way. So let's talk about what PR is not, because I often find that PR, marketing, advertising, they're all kind of used interchangeably, and they're really not interchangeable. So PR is not marketing. Marketing is identifying customer needs and promoting products or services to meet those needs, and ultimately to convert leads to sales. And PR is not advertising. Advertising obviously is paying to have to promote products and services, also to drive sales. So PR is neither marketing nor is it advertising. PR focuses on building relationships at its core and managing the company's reputation through a variety of means today. And it's really about earning public trust and creating a positive image for your company in the public's eye. So for fintech companies, this means being seen as secure, as compliant, as innovative, as leading in terms of emerging technologies, and customer-centric. Marketing is more, again, about promoting and selling the products and services. And marketing really builds on the trust that is created by the PR efforts. So in fintech, marketing strategies are more focused on highlighting products and features and benefits and competitive advantage, all to stimulate demand. And I thought I'd go through kind of 3 different scenarios that illustrate PR versus marketing versus advertising. So say a fintech company is announcing a partnership with a big bank. PR would involve issuing a press release, scheduling media interviews, lining up TV business news channels. Maybe the founder would write an op-ed about why this partnership is so revolutionary. You would post a blog on LinkedIn about the technology that's behind this partnership and how it's innovative. And all of that kind of comes together to raise awareness about this partnership. And it's very intentional in terms of what you want the public to perceive about this particular partnership. Marketing, for example, would be if the same company did some market research, identified a pain point of customers, created a feature on the app, and then put out a campaign to drive adoption and generate leads around this new app. That would be marketing. And then advertising, of course, would be paying to have ads placed that promote the feature. So that, I think, is kind of a very clear breakdown of the difference and how they all fit together. So when we talk about MENA fintechs and why they really need strong PR and communication, we all know that the marketplace in MENA for fintechs is extremely crowded. The market is booming. There are new players emerging. The technology is constantly changing. The concepts are constantly changing. So there can be there's a perception that there's a lot of noise. And the way you differentiate yourself, the way you gain share of voice, the way you build trust is by having a very strong and very strategic plan in place that you execute on. Other reasons are, you use your PR to educate and to attract, because as we all know, fintech, the concepts, it's a new industry. The concepts are constantly changing. They're very complex. And you can use your PR efforts to educate consumers or to educate merchants or whoever your stakeholders are, not just about the technology, but about the impact on society within the ecosystem. And by providing this kind of very valuable, informative, educational content, you're attracting your audience. You're also establishing trust and credibility, and you can use it to showcase your company's subject matter experts, your founders, your top executives, really kind of showcasing your mission, vision, and values in a way that establishes you as an industry leader. Another very important reason why you need strategic communications and it needs to be strong is because in the digital era, you have control over shaping your own brand narrative through the proliferation of all of the social media platforms. And so you have to be very particular and very strategic in how you craft your brand narrative, how you want to be seen, and how you want to be known. And ultimately, I think, most, let's say most fintechs are in a position of, whether they're startups or scale ups, everybody's at some point going to be looking for investors and partners, and establishing yourself through PR, through thought leadership, through the content that you create and that you share also really demonstrates the mission, vision, and values in front of investors, and really kind of tells the public at large really what you're all about and what you stand for. And a lot of times when we talk about PR, one of the most important things that we talk about is trust. Excuse me. And so I wanted to get down to really, why is trust so important? We talk about it a lot, but why is it important? Well, trust is really the key to your brand's currency, right? It establishes your reputation, and you build your brand equity on top of that, and it drives value for your company. And we know that when trust translates usually into greater sales, higher customer loyalty, a more favorable online reputation, a greater number of referrals, a higher number of volume transactions. So trust is really, it wouldn't necessarily be obvious, but it is actually very much tied to your bottom line. Adobe recently did a study in the UK, a survey, and they found that seven out of 10 customers are more likely to buy from brands that they trust and abandon those that they don't trust. And consumers show that they trust a brand by making more purchases, recommending to friends, joining loyalty programs, and posting positive reviews on social media. So when we talk about PR and comms, it's a very strategic process, and there are several steps to the process that lay the foundation for a strong strategy and for an effective plan. And they involve research, planning, execution, and evaluation. So the first step that I undertake always is research and situation analysis, just kind of understanding the lay of the land. What is the competition? Who is the competition? What do they say about themselves? Um, Conducting a SWOT analysis, understanding, what are the strengths of the brand? What are the things that we can really leverage to build this reputation? What are the opportunities that we have? Maybe it's certain partnerships, maybe it's new technologies. Identifying those opportunities will be important also for crafting a strategy. We need to understand what are the weaknesses of the brand. How do we rate? Maybe one of our features isn't as good as somebody else's. Maybe whatever those weaknesses may be, we also need to articulate them and understand them. And so within our messaging, we mitigate around them and make sure that that we are effectively addressing them in a way that reflects positively on the brand, if we choose to address them. And then, of course, what the threats are to the brand, if it's some kind of bad press, if there's a founder who's had issues, if there's a product product launch that didn't go well, if there's regulation coming out that's going to affect our business. So really laying out the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats gives you kind of a good visual map of where you need to be focusing and what you need to be saying. The next step is to conduct stakeholder mapping, and stakeholders are obviously all the individuals and organizations that are going to be interested in what you have to say or have influence over your business. And we map them out in this way, so that helps us determine, who do we need to really communicate to on a very regular basis? Who do we just need to keep informed? Who do we really need to keep satisfied and have that information kind of flowing, but not in a very extensive way. So again, the purpose of mapping all of these things out is to kind of really lay out a visual map of everything that we have to work with when we come down to the strategy and the planning, and then finally the execution. We also map out the audiences and the mediums. So which channels are we going to reach which audience segment? Which platform is the right platform for this target audience versus that target audience? It's also very important to have a really clear idea of how you're going to utilize your different media channels. Spokesperson mapping is also important. Even I think for startups, it's often the case that you'll have one person rising as your main spokesperson, whether it's a founder or CEO. But I really strongly believe that it reflects much better on an organization when you have multiple spokespeople. Multiple spokespeople have, different followers, different target audiences, different competencies, and I think the more credible spokespeople that you can highlight for your organization, I think it just creates a public perception that maybe I don't want to say bigger than you are, but definitely that you have a lot of smart people working for you. And that goes also towards building trust and credibility. So I typically avoid the one spokesperson model as much as possible. The next step would be to really define the strategy, and my formula, maybe it's a little bit too formulaic, but really my formula is content is king. I'm a strong believer in that. And the formula really boils down to, creating meaningful content that's strategic, and then leveraging the own channels that you have, leveraging the media relations that you have, leveraging the partnership ecosystem within which you work. And when you put all of that together, you end up with the greater awareness and the elevated positioning and that trust and credibility that you're looking for. So the next step in my process would be defining the goals and defining the objectives, and always aligning them with the overall company goals. And here are like some sample objectives. For example, to grow brand awareness regionally, globally, and visibly, and global visibility. How we would do that is to effectively tell the company's story on own channels and in the media. To elevate the brand positioning would be another objective. You do that by owning the conversation, building an in-house thought leadership practice that engages and informs. Another objective could be to inform customers and to attract talent. In tech, attracting talent. Most companies are typically competing for the same tech talent. So it's actually important to have a communication strategy around that, attracting those engineers and those developers who are really key to the success of your company at the end of the day. So that could also be another objective, attracting talent, for example, and then deciding how you're going to do that. When it comes to setting goals, which are different from objectives, obviously, we need to set SMART goals, and SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And the reason that we do it in this way is that SMART goals are basically very defined, very specific. They're measurable, they're realistic, and they're bound to a time, which makes them measurable, really, at the end of the day. And so here are some, this is a sample for, a thought leadership vertical, LinkedIn. I meant to say LinkedIn actually, but publish 2 articles per month on LinkedIn, and attract 5,000 new subscribers to the LinkedIn newsletter. That would be an achievable, time-bound, very specific goal. on the LinkedIn page, 5% engagement rate consistently across all of the content, 3 posts a week, 3,000 new followers per month. So you get the idea. The goals are very specific, they're bound to a time, they're achievable, and they're measurable. So the next step would be crafting the message house, and the message house is basically, that umbrella statement, which is basically the overarching kind of brand promise or the statement or kind of why you exist. That's your umbrella statement, and then under that you would define, say, 3 core messages, and then the evidence and the proof or the support for those. Contentions that you're proposing. So again, it's a very laying all of this groundwork might seem tedious, but when you put all of these things in place, the final steps just kind of reveal themselves, in all honesty. So then we get to planning and execution, and always include a crisis communications plan. How are you going to handle other than planning out your activities and the timelines and the content and the strategy. Also, a crisis communication plan is obviously really important in case at some point things don't go as intended. You have an issue with a product, you have an issue with a founder, you get bad reviews on the app, whatever it might be. A crisis communication plan in place before you ever need it is crucial. And then, of course, upon execution, just continually measuring your success, measuring against your KPIs and those SMART goals that you set. And I review every quarter. Some people review every 6 months. Whatever works. So what are the kind of the elements that we have in our PR toolkit that we can use to accomplish all of these things? I think it's very straightforward. Press releases. I think press releases today have become the least important part of your PR strategy, in all honesty. Whereas, again, before, digital PR, they were the centerpiece. I think now they're just kind of a pro forma, get a press release out, but there are so many other elements within an integrated campaign. Definitely the media coverage, the op-eds, the blogs, the LinkedIn content, white papers, industry reports, the podcasts, webinars, the events and conferences and summits, the partnerships with influencers, and then partnerships at large. These are kind of all of the things that we have to play with to shape that public perception. And previously we talked about media, so I wanted to break it down to, the examples of owned, earned, and paid. Owned is obviously your website. Your website is the most important piece of communication that you have. It should be a learning destination about your company, about your industry, about your products, and about the technology. And so I think, the website is the single most important piece of content and communication that you own. Obviously, also your social media platforms, your newsletters and emailers that go out, as well as your app. In terms of earned media, the media mentions and features and interviews, which are, have been all along throughout even traditional PR. But now we add to that, online reviews that you get, comments on your posts that you get, mentions, retweets, reposts. So we consider all of those earned media, and they all help us gauge, how well our content is doing on social platforms. And then the paid media, of course, is the advertising and influencers and partnerships. I wanted to talk specifically about LinkedIn because of, LinkedIn for B2B fintech brands. Other than the website, I think LinkedIn is a very close second in terms of importance of a communications platform. It allows you to directly engage with your audience. You can showcase your thought leadership and your subject matter expertise, and you can see not in real time, but you have very quick feedback of how your content is doing, how people are engaging with it. Are they reposting it? Are they commenting? um, it's just a great platform for showcasing thought leadership for free. It also allows you to target your content to relevant groups. We have, so many fintech circle and fintech this, and so all of these relevant groups allow you to target your audience even more deeply. And then in terms of visibility at a very high level, that's where the investors are, that's where the partners are. And it's really important that you very carefully curate and shape your image on LinkedIn. And of course, the analytics tools on LinkedIn are very helpful, not just in benchmarking not just in measuring your activity, but also benchmarking against your competition. And so there's a lot of insight to be gleaned when using LinkedIn effectively. And I'm really a strong proponent of LinkedIn for B2B brands, especially for fintechs. So then I thought I'd talk about a few best practices for kind of fintechs in MENA. Local relevance is really important. Highlight how your fintech solutions address specific financial challenges faced by MENA businesses and consumers. Consider cultural nuances and language preferences when crafting your message. I previously worked with a Canadian fintech company, and the design team was in Canada. And for the holidays, for example, they would send graphics for us to post locally for a Christmas holiday. Greeting would be, a snow scene in a forest somewhere, and it just wasn't very culturally relevant. Or a Eid greeting with pictures of families and dogs, and again, not culturally relevant for a religious holiday. So it's important to have that local relevance. Another thing that I think is really important is the storytelling. And like I said before, with digital PR, you have control to shape your narrative. You're not relying on the media because of the platforms that we own. So it's an opportunity to craft a narrative that showcases your company's unique value proposition and mission. Why are you different? How are you improving financial experiences in the MENA region? How are you contributing to financial inclusion? How are you supporting, various local initiatives? Back to content again. Content is king. Really create valuable content that educates and informs your audience, and you will see how the trust grows and how the credibility grows. I can't stress enough how important it is to create content that really educates and adds value. I'm also a big proponent, having worked on the agency side and in-house, of building that in-house capability. I think it's really important to invest in a strong internal team. Your internal team are your subject matter experts. They're the subject matter experts about your company and your mission and your vision and your values and your products. I don't think uh, I don't think it's wise to rely on an agency to craft your strategy, to execute your strategy. I think that where agencies still are PR agencies are very relevant is the media relations part, because they still have an advantage. Unless you have an in-house media relations person, I think PR agencies still have an advantage when it comes to media relations. But when it comes to crafting your message, writing your content, I really feel that that should be done in-house. Uh, and even though you rely on a PR agency, I think it's important to try to lay the foundation of media relations, internally. Cultivate relationships with key journalists and media outlets in the region when you can. Provide valuable insights and expertise to be viewed as a trusted source. I think it's important. Media relations is interesting because what we tend to do is we only engage with the media when we have news that we want to disseminate. However, what's more effective is having ongoing conversations, really building. really building a relationship so that it's not transactional. I have journalists that I'm in touch with on a regular basis that we check in. I might give them a heads up, in a couple of months' time we have something big that we're announcing. I'll keep you posted. Um, Also working with journalists in a way that, I was approached by a journalist who was writing a story about the economy in Egypt and how startups were fleeing Egypt for the GCC. That wasn't really a story. We have very strong relationships with the central bank, with the government in Egypt. That wasn't the story that I could get behind. But this journalist is important to me, and it's a tier one outlet. So I said, listen, I'm going to sit this one out, but how about this idea for a future article? And so we sat that story out, and then the following month she came back to me and she said, actually, that was a good pitch and I want to do that story, so let's talk. So it's a give and take and a back and forth, and you kind of, again, it comes down to building trust. Building trust with the media is also very important for a brand. Even if you are using an agency, you also need to do your own work. In MENA, the mobile penetration is so high, so your content needs to really have a mobile first approach. You have to, content should be optimized for mobile devices. We know that, for example, videos, people, I don't remember what the statistics are, but the majority of people watch videos, for example, on LinkedIn at work on silent. So hence the importance of having captions on your videos, for example. Focus on owned social media channels. So really leverage the channels that you have and the followers that you have. And it's really important to understand each platform and how to use it. And typically content that's good for one platform is not going to work with your audience on a different platform. So on Twitter/X, it's where you're really sharing news, breaking news. On LinkedIn, you're showcasing your thought leadership. Instagram is much more visual. It's a good platform for employer branding and culture type of content. So it's really important to uh, focus on your social media channels, but use them smartly and differentiate your content between the channels. It's not, one solution fits all. Another thing that's unique in this region is the consumer trust in governments is quite high. And so anytime you're involved in a public-private partnership or something that you're doing aligns with the government or with the national agenda, that's something to really incorporate. In this part of the world, it's something that you should incorporate into your communications. It helps to build trust. In other parts of the world, that's not the case. But in this region, leveraging those partnerships is valuable. And I kind of touched on this a little bit before, leveraging your executives and your subject matter experts. And again, I think it's really important to have, a variety of different spokespeople as opposed to making one person the face of the brand. As long as that's aligned with, the founder or the founding team, and that's, what they have in mind for their company. Engaging with fintech influencers. A lot of people do a lot of influencer marketing. We don't do that at Paymob. We're more of a B2B, and it's not kind of part of our strategy. But fintech influencers can be very effective when you partner with them. And we know so many of them are members of MENA Fintech Association, so they're a WhatsApp message away. And finally, measuring and adapting, and we touched on this before, but regularly track the performance of your PR efforts and make adjustments based on the data. Analyze what's working and what's not, and continuously refine and pivot as necessary.